Hey guys, it's Tara here. Welcome back to another episode of McDonald County 411. Today is a very special, highly anticipated episode. I have the pleasure to have with me the presiding commissioner, Mr. Bryan Hall. Welcome, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to meet and talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. I just kind of wanted to dive a little bit into who is Bryan Hall. So just for the folks that don't know you real well personally, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background information, just where you grew up, early years type stuff?
Yeah, I grew up most of my childhood, except for a couple of years we grew up here in McDonald County, mainly out in the split log community, which is west of Goodman. I graduated from McDonald County High School in 1985. All my family, both sides of my family live here in and around here. My dad worked in local government here. I have a lot of long and close ties to McDonald County.
Awesome. Okay. And tell us a little bit about your family.
Absolutely. I've been married to my wife, Sherry, for, oh my gosh, we got married in 1991. Do the math. 35 years this year, actually. Very blessed. Absolutely blessed. We've been through a lot together, and we're just happily married still 35 years. I have two children, Cody and Madison. They're both graduated from McDonald County High. Cody's a lineman from New Mac. My daughter works for Oracle in Kansas City. I have 1 year and a half old granddaughter. That's kind of become my wife's life right there right now, and then quickly becoming mine as well. So a lot of ties here in McDonald County.
So new grandparents, that's an exciting time of
Absolutely,
life.
absolutely.
I can imagine, like anytime you're becoming parents or grandparents.
Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting. Well, good. All right. Well, let's just kind of dive in here. You first ran for commissioner of the Western District in 2020. And I'm always interested in those 2020 races because it was obviously COVID.
Correct.
And right at kind of the peak of COVID. So tell me a little bit about how that 2020 race
was different. It was my first delve into politics, but my dad had been involved in it, and he loved the political campaign season. He loved going to pie suppers and all the events around everything. Well, there was none of that during COVID. It was very difficult. You hated to go knock on doors because people didn't want people around, and it was very difficult times for all of us, not just the campaign season. But
I imagine you probably relied pretty heavily on social media. I mean, really, that was about the only way people could communicate.
Correct. That's when I joined Facebook at that time.
Interesting. Well, after that, you ran for presiding commissioner, and your current term, you hold office until December 31st of the end of this year.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So,
when I ran for Western, Rick beat me, but we worked great together. We're great friends. Rick's, it was all God's plan that Rick won that, and now I get to work with Rick. So it's been a great 3.5, almost 4 years working with Jamie and Rick. We have a great relationship, work well together. And all the office holders. We just had office holder meeting this morning. And McDonald County is truly blessed with some really good people and the employees. We work so well together. You don't see that in a lot of counties, but we're very blessed here in McDonald County.
Nice. Okay. Well, so what actually made you? I know you talked a lot about your father being in politics, so I imagine that was probably influenced, but what made you first want to run for commissioner office? What was it about that specific office?
To keep it brief and short, I worked 25 years as a police officer, and I was really burnt out on public service and people. I was burnt out on people, and came back to the farm, and then about a year and a half with my dad on the farm, and that's what I wanted to do. And he was diagnosed with cancer. And in that 1.5 to 2 year battle, he battled cancer. I went around with Dad and saw how he related to people and how people loved Dad. And I realized that there was more to life than just chasing cows around on the farm. I need to get back in public service. And that led me to run for county government.
It's a great story. That's very inspiring. Do you think that your time in law enforcement helped you at all and prepare for this role?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. How to connect with people, how to deal with people, how to problem solve, how to be ready for really any situation. Probably more than anything, probably even more than my father, though, was my faith, my belief in Jesus Christ and our calling to serve people and just to serve in any manner. Sometimes it's trying, sometimes it's difficult. In fact, it's often trying and difficult, but that's what we're called to do, called to serve in whatever role God puts us in.
What accomplishments are you most proud of during your time so far as presiding commissioner?
Probably the biggest that most people will be aware of is when I took office McDonald County is right in the middle of this sludge issue, for lack of a better word, the application of this product on our agricultural land of the county. And at the time, I was president of the new McDonald County Cattlemen's Association. They were in the middle of this fight, and stepping in as county presiding commissioner threw me right into that role in another angle, and really went to a lot of meetings, really got involved, worked with Dirk Deaton, who was great. He was probably the front runner on it, but many other people, citizens, government employees, and a lot of meetings, a lot of listening to complaints. And we finally got something done to help with that. And it was a huge deal. It was big enough that the governor at the time, Mike Parson, came down and signed the law and enacted the law. It had already been enacted, but he came down for a ceremony where he signed the law again. We had the high school band. It was a huge deal for McDonald County. And that was a big accomplishment, a fight that I was glad to be able to be a part of. A lot of a sense of accomplishment from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's a great answer. Okay. Well, on the flip side, what has been the toughest challenges that you'd say McDonald County has faced during your time as presiding commissioner?
That was probably one of the toughest. We were battling big money then. You know, it was huge money. You know, as you are learning the cycling issue, there's a lot of strong opinions on both sides of that issue. And I think we'll get into that more later, but you know, we're trying to find the path forward to make the most people happy that we can, you know.
What do you see as McDonald County's biggest opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years?
There's so much opportunity here, and it all, in my opinion, it all goes back to our natural resources. It's what God gave us, you know, and you can't buy that in other locations. We have the beauty of the rivers. We have the scenery of the land, the lay of the land, and the people here. You know, that's a huge part of it. And we have, and totally my opinion, but I fully believe that we have great schools here. We have great school facilities here. We have great school administrators. We have great teachers. We have lots and lots of great kids, parents, and we see and hear from the bad ones. We see all that, and we think, oh boy, they're crying. I'm really involved in the recovery effort in McDonald County. That was part of my great process moving back. I kind of stumbled into that, not any intentions whatsoever, but to see the change that we've made in the people caught in addiction in this county and the changes still happen. We have an incredibly successful treatment court program down here at the courthouse. People involved with that. The recovery house, I've been involved with that from when it was first started, and Anderson, and changing men's lives and getting them back with their families and raising their kids and working jobs. And that's a tremendous blessing to be a part of that. And there's just so much potential here. You know, obviously the proximity to the explosion in Northwest Arkansas, but we have to be careful with that as well. You know, not just from a cycling standpoint, but from our resources, our water, the waste that we're
preserving
our sewage. Yes, absolutely. We have to be careful, but there's a tremendous amount of possibility here.
It's wonderful. Great answer too. All right. Well, now to some of the concerns that some citizens are voicing. We posted on Facebook, and we had a enormous outreach of questions, or pouring in of questions rather. And we, first and foremost, we thank you guys for taking your time to post those questions. We take them very seriously. I take them very seriously. I feel an enormous pressure and responsibility being the one privileged to talk to the commissioner. And I am going to fully try to get your questions answered in the most respectful, kind way as I can. So just bear with me, and we're gonna go over a few things. I went through all the questions, and I compiled what I feel is like a very strong top 5 concerns. Of course, the number one was cycling, but we're gonna save that for the end.
Sure.
So I will acknowledge out there, cycling was definitely the number one concern, and we are gonna touch on that. We're just gonna shift that to later in the podcast. So the number 2 concern, which I'm sure is just an age-old concern, is road grading.
Sure.
So I think the thing to do is tell them about just how that works, road grading, how many roads have to be fit in, what it takes to schedule those. Maybe give people an idea of just how the system planning of road grading goes.
I'll start from the very beginning. That's the budgeting in McDonald County. And there's a lot of misunderstanding on that, our budgeting process. McDonald County is funded solely from sales tax. We receive no property tax money. McDonald County receives no property tax money. We're based solely on sales tax and the use tax, which the voters passed last year. We're so thankful for that. It did contribute a lot to our budget, and has allowed us to do a whole lot more things. Same with more money in there, we were able to set aside $600,000 this year to hire a contractor to come in and redo chip and seal projects across the county. Now this started in the last couple of weeks. They're working up just right there that you did by the Goodman Ballpark. We started that. We'll be hitting a lot of our roads this summer, resurfacing roads, which by doing that will allow our county road crews to go out, and the plan is to chip and seal some new projects and roads that haven't ever been chip and sealed before. We're planning to do several miles of that. We set aside around, I think around $700,000 for the materials for them to do that. We bought some new equipment that's needed in the process of doing that. And we were able to buy a third side wing mower, the mower that has the arm that reaches out and trims the right of ways. We bought a third one of those to be able to cover the county better. So it's the money that the use tax has brought forth by the approval from the voters. We so appreciate that. And we're putting that to work for right away to try to make obvious improvements to our roads. Yeah, our roads in the county, they have been ignored for many years and not anyone's fault, just wear and tear. And these floods that we have nowadays, some of these road beds are 8 down. You drive down some of these roads, you can't even see the field to the side because the road bed's 5-6 foot deep and washed out. That's going to require material brought in and hauled in and build these roads back up, which we're in the process of trying to do. We're working on that. We've got great guys on our road crew. I know they catch a lot of grief just like the commissioners, but we've got a good group, really good group of guys. We've lost a few to retirement, getting ready to leave some more. So we're always looking to hire, but we're making progress. We're really trying to get out there. And we know that is a very key, crucial part to our infrastructure, to the quality of life of people in the county. You buy I started saying $40,000 vehicle. It's not even $60,000, $70,000 vehicle now. You don't want to drive over a rough road. And we're really, really trying to make big improvements on that. But we have 631 miles of roads we maintain in the county. It's a lot to maintain. So
that's a really great answer. I mean, before the first step in any project is funding. And so you've taken that first step to successfully secure the funding that is needed. And now it seems like you have taken the additional steps to secure all the materials, equipment. And it looks like this summer, you're going to see a lot of road work in McDonald County. So that's exciting.
Absolutely.
All right. So, okay. Number 3, more road signs in high traffic areas. I saw things like one way or no through road or dead end, just in general, people wanting more road signs in their neighborhoods. And what do you say to that?
We've done some road sign work. It takes people calling us, letting us know where they want them at, obviously, but
so people are allowed to request. I know you can't guarantee. I'm sure you have restrictions. You have to follow, but can people or neighborhoods petition or request?
Just give us a call.
Okay, just give us
417-223-7516. Give us a call. We're in office one Mondays and Wednesdays. When we're in the office, we're out on other meetings other times, but give us a call, leave a message, and we'll get back with you, and we'll look at the need and see if there's a definite need there. We do have signs that are stolen, shot up, that kind of thing, which is frustrating. They're not cheap either, but we'll see what we can do to help out.
Great. All right. Wonderful. All right. Number 4 was disposing of trash and junk cars that are immobile or abandoned, whether it be on private or public property, which, I will say just down from where I live, I have a situation that's kind of a little frustrating. Sometimes it's getting better and I appreciate that, but that is for property value. I can see where that would irritate people but again, I know you are probably limited to what you can control and what you can't, especially on private property. So what do you say to the citizens concerned about that?
Currently, McDonald County doesn't have any planning and zoning ordinances. We've talked about it. We've had people approach us asking about it. There's a lot of people that are opposed to it, and understandably so. We've looked into it, but we don't have any planning and zoning in the county, which would allow us to enforce cleaning up a private property. Any kind of ordinances on private property. We don't have that. We don't have that authority right now. As far as litter on the roadway, side of the road, we do have a recycling department, some good employees working there that go out and gather up the trash. They take some people out on the work programs, as part of the probation, go out picking up some trash. Again, give us a call. Let us know where the problem's at. But, we're trying to address that issue. Our roads are terrible shape. We can't do it on the state highways, and the state doesn't seem to have much interest in picking up that trash by us. So we called and asked about it, but I see the trash just like you do. That annoys me to no end. But right now we don't have any authority to do anything on private property.
Totally understandable. So just a couple questions I had just off that was why, and I'm sure this is much more to do with just your office, but why doesn't McDonald County have more or any zoning? And I'm not real experienced. I actually learned a lot from the leadership class a couple weeks ago, more than I even knew before. Was that purposefully, I don't want to say kept out, but is there a reason why we've never had it?
Absolutely. We are based on agriculture in McDonald County. And, all this growth we're talking about and everything, we're still an agricultural county. And the farmers don't want government telling them how to run their farm, and I'm one of those. I don't want government telling me how to run the farm. And you can just go just right across the line into Arkansas and see how planning and zoning has gone too far. You have to have a permit to build a fence or clean out a pond or anything you want to do in your place. You have to have a permit. It's gone too far. Obviously the three commissioners right now, we would have no intentions of overreach like that, but we won't be in there forever. And a lot of people just do not want government infringement on their private rights and their private property.
Well, fair enough.
Understandable.
Understandable, totally. And then I have another spinoff question is, I see those Adopt a Highway programs, and I know that we have a wonderful community. I know that our community is synonymous with volunteering and stepping up. And I also work with a lot of high school organizations or booster clubs where we're always looking for community give back opportunities for the kiddos. Is that something that like organizations could sign up through the commissioner's office to agree to, adopt sections of highways for trash pickups? I also know you got safety and all that. Could that maybe be something? Is there anything we could do about that? Getting more programs like that enacting?
It's been talked about, and I think it's a great idea. Again, the safety is a concern.
Yeah.
And how we would do it. I would like a group. I know I've talked about the chamber. I would like somebody to step in and be a partner with that. And, with county, I think would be receptive to that with our recycling program. The Adopt a Highway was a state program, to my knowledge, and I don't know if they're even still doing that, but
but I would see, you'd see the signs, you used to see the signs all the time, and you'd even see people out. And what a great idea. If you can do it safely, if it can be done safely, what a great idea. Something to think about. So, and then number 5, improvements of low water crossings. We had a lot of that. There was issues I mentioned, more than one location mentioned, but I wanted to preface the Big Sugar Creek area because that got a more shout out than the others. So basically, just what can you speak on as far as improvements of the low water crossings in the area, specifically the Big Sugar Creek area?
Sure. Yeah, I'm aware of the bridges and slabs we're talking about, and they are a concern. We have a state inspector comes down every year and inspects all our bridges, slabs in the county. It's about a week-long project. Our rate foreman goes out with them, and based off that list and based on traffic, how heavy the traffic is, we make a decision on what projects to take on that year or for that year. This year we set aside, I think it's $400,000 for bridge and slab work. We had 5 bridges that were on our list, and then the inspector made a Mike's Creek bridge out on the east side of the county, made a high priority of that. That bridge was deficient. It was in need of emergency repairs, so we had to shift one of the projects to that bridge. It's going to be a big, expensive project, but we set some money aside earlier, so I think we're going to be all right on that and get that bridge fixed and back in shape and do the other 4 projects. So every year we spend the money we have, and $400,000 this year. Hopefully we have some more to set aside next year and then do more projects.
It sounds like you guys do have a lot of plans. I think that the answers you gave to those concerns, I think were really good answers. I think they're really valid. It sounds like you guys really do have not only the funding, but now the tools, equipment, and the people. You heard it, guys, too. They're hiring. They're always hiring for road to help out with the roads. We have some good ideas that you're looking to enact to help with trash. So that's really good. All right. So now what we say for the end, like we talked about in the beginning, cycling was the number one concern that you guys posted. So I wanted to make sure that we set aside proper time to talk about that. For me, it was important that when I was researching cycling and the issues of the citizens' concerns, which are really valid issues.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, very valid issues. Nothing to me seems outrageous or, what their concerns are.
Absolutely.
But for me personally, it was important that I stuck with just Missouri. I wanted only Missouri numbers, Missouri facts, because this is about Missouri. It's not about Arkansas. It's not about Northwest Arkansas. It's about Missouri and McDonald County. So I'm going to throw out a few facts that I researched, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to get your thoughts. And just for you guys, so you know, all these facts came from the Missouri Bicycle and Pedestrian Federation that's in Jeff City, Missouri, in their reports, in their most recent reports. So about 2 million Missourians are regular bicyclists. So that means they are participating in it daily. And I thought that was a big number.
Sure.
Just in Missouri. Missouri has 7 cross-state and national bicycle routes, the most of any other state. 76.5% of Missourians say they have no safe place to bicycle in their community. So if they are cycling, they are doing so what they feel in unsafe areas. 45.6% of Missourians have no sidewalks in their neighborhoods, which that is important, obviously, because it provides a safe place for a bicycle that gets it off the road. Participants in bicycling and trail sports do spend 161 billion annually, making up for 25% of the outdoor recreation economy nationwide. Missouri recognizes and admits a severe lack of infrastructure that is required to support bicycling in most communities. All right. So the reason why I thought it was important to throw those facts out there before we get into the conversation was just to kind of show people that this is a statewide problem. It seems it is not just a McDonald County problem. Not having the infrastructure required to support safe cycling on a recreational level or definitely a competitive level. But one of the first things I wanted to ask is, because it seems like the most common sense question is, what authority does McDonald County have to regulate organized cycling events or enforce like ordinance or fines? What power does McDonald County hold in that area?
There are state statutes overseeing biking laws, and they have to follow those laws. And I've learned since all this has kind of happened, there's some laws in Arkansas that are different than they are in Missouri as far as stop signs, that type of thing. So our sheriff is familiar with those laws, and we've had some of these events come through. They know the laws and they enforce the laws when they seem fit, they're deemed fit. So there are laws overseeing that. We don't have anything specifically McDonald County ordinances, and as far as that type of thing, we haven't seen a need for creating any type of ordinance overseeing the actual writing laws.
Right. In your opinion, as commissioner, would you say that there is a safety issue with bicycling in McDonald County?
I think that's what's been expressed to us mostly. The infringement on their peace and quiet is another view that has been expressed to us a lot, but the safety concern is probably the other overwhelming concern that's been expressed to us. And yes, particularly with these big events come through, there's a lot of safety concerns.
So, and I'm trying to tread lightly there because I know that, cycling is such a hot topic issue. I guess what I want to get down to is should we or shouldn't we allow cycling in? Like, you can't not allow something in, but should we welcome cycling in? If so, why? Or to be honest, is it just if you're not really sure what the right answer? Because to me personally, I see good points on both sides. I find myself a little confused at which way to go. What do we do?
Well, I read the comments that on your post as well, and I've talked to most of those people previously and then know their feelings. And I went to meetings out in the rural southeast part of the county and to hear these people. And, I'm compassionate to their complaints. They have some very valid complaints. I don't know the answer either. The easy answer would be for us to ban it, and a lot of people, that's what they want. But we have talked to an attorney that represents counties from the state represents the Missouri Association of Counties in front of the state of Missouri. And he says we don't have the authority to ban it. So that's kind of what we based that decision.
I think that's very key that we acknowledge that, just not to interrupt you, that, because that's a top question. And I believe you just answered it very specifically. So on advice of the state attorney, the county was told that you can't ban it.
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, that's fine. Again, that would be the easy solve the problem for us as commissioners. None of us want to ride. So, let's just ban it. We're done with it.
But that's not awesome.
With our prosecuting attorney, with the sheriff, Robert Evenson, to come up with a permitting process, an application, a permit they must acquire for these organized events, these large organized events.
Right.
So we can provide law enforcement out on the roads. We can provide escorts, whatever is needed. You know, that's up to the sheriff. And whenever they put these applications in, we decide what's needed to provide for a safe event. And then the event has to pay for that. They have to pay for the officers and the fuel for the vehicles. We tried to find a happy medium, and it's still a work in progress. I think it's helped. We've had that in effect for a while now, and I think it has helped, but it's still a work in progress. Whenever we started researching how to go about this, there was no other permits in the state of Missouri. You know, we looked around. If you Googled what counties in the state of Missouri require bicycle permitting, and it would say McDonald County, and you kind of spell out what we've done, but there was nothing else to go off of. So we tried to craft something to help out, and I think we've done that, but we're still learning. We're still trying to figure it out and how to move forward. You know, and the other part of that is, you mentioned there, the people's privacy and quiet. You know, they live way out in rural McDonald County for a reason. And some of these events have brought helicopters that have flown over the lead pack very low and have spooked livestock through fences. That's not acceptable. You know, we're not going to allow that to happen. I don't know how we can prevent it, but there are federal and state laws to prevent that. So the sheriff has made a work on that.
Okay. And again, sorry to interrupt you, but on the topic of that, so if say a big race comes through and they do not get their permit, what can the sheriff's office or the county do? Obviously, we can fine them. You know, if you make the punishment extreme enough, it will maybe detour. So can we set those fines really high? Is there something we can do just to really make it difficult for those people who can, the few probably that who refuse to conform and get the right permits and do it the right way and pay the county the money that they need to pay the county for having their event? What can we do to them if they do not follow that rule?
We had one that didn't. It had an event, it was a smaller event, but it did meet the requirements of requiring a permit, and they didn't apply for one. And we fined them, I think it was $1,000.
Nice.
But these events are, we all know where some of the money comes to help promote these events, and $1,000 to some of these organizations is nothing. So I don't know what I don't know what the money amount would have to be for us to really be a deterrent. But we were contacted by another race organizer probably a month and a half ago, and they decided, that they didn't want to come here, which, okay, fine. If you don't want to play by our permit rules, then you can go somewhere else. So that was a deterrent for that event. So,
yeah,
it's working some, but we got some improvement to do on it.
Right. And you made a great point about how some of these organizations, $1,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. And so is there something we could do where that did maybe yank any potential permits for a year or something like that, where, okay, you didn't follow this rule. Now for 365 days, you can't apply for a permit.
That is written into our permit that we have the right to deny them for future permits. We're still trying to figure out how much teeth, how much enforcement power we have with our permit. It's kind of a new ground. Our prosecutor has told us that we do. And so we're kind of going with what she says, and she knows what she's doing. She's done that for a long time. So we're moving forward with the belief and the hope that we do have some enforcement power on that if we do start denying some of these people future permits.
Nice. Well, again, it's such I really feel for people in your position. And I want to say that, and people, in leadership and roles like this right now, dealing with this, because I truly feel like it is very much more complicated than probably the average person knows. Even what we learned today, that you can and can't do certain things. I didn't know that before today. And I also feel like Missouri needs to step in and step up to the plate. What I am left with after today's conversation is the county is doing what they can, but our hands are tied by rules. And this is a Missouri-wide problem, but also a Missouri revenue stream. Why isn't the state of Missouri stepping up to help these small communities? It all is kind of right now falling on the shoulders of the counties to handle this Missouri-wide problem.
Yeah, and it's becoming one. I mean, I think we're kind of one of the leaders as far as the problem here because of our proximity to one of the hotbeds of cycling in the country. But it kind of goes back to the sludge deal. It was kind of an isolated problem that we were only having here. I would go to state conferences and mention the sludge issue, and they were like, "Oh, we don't know what you're talking about. It's not an issue." But finally, we got enough involvement and just raised our voices enough that the state got involved to the point the governor came down to sign this new bill into that Third could really help us with. So, we just have to keep pushing forward, moving forward, and you hope and pray that from the safety standpoint that nobody gets hurt badly or even loses a life. So we're trying to prevent that from happening, but we're aware of it. And we are approached. We had a couple of guys in office a couple weeks ago that there's a lot of people in McDonald County that are part of the cycling community that want to have more cycling events. And we hear from them as well. So we have to take that into account. Not everybody's opposed to it. So we're, again, trying to find that happy medium to where we want to be,
Right. We're about to wrap up the podcast, but we probably need to address the bicycling Northwest Arkansas specific issue, because a lot of people are not just anti-cycling, they're anti-Northwest Arkansas pushing what they feel is pushing their cycling over into our community. So I think that we should address that. What are the pros and cons of Northwest Arkansas? What are some pros to letting them in, so to speak? What are some cons to letting them in, so to speak? Can we approach it that way?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, some of the pros are, there's a tremendous amount of revenue and we're not really tapping into it yet here, but there's a lot of revenue that could really help out a lot of our small businesses in the county, our little mom and pop grocery stores, our restaurants that could make profit off this. And that would be great. That would be wonderful. And provide some opportunity, just like the canoeing does for the county. It's a big boost for the county. And there was a lot of people opposed to that. Still is a lot of people opposed to that. The cons, we've discussed there's a lot of cons, and we're trying to deal with that, again, trying to find that balance. We're never going to make everybody happy. We may not make a lot of people happy, but we got to try to find that balance of where McDonald County fits into all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a good note to end on, because it truly is all about balance. Everything in life is a little bit of give and a little bit of take. And it's leaders like you who are genuine, kind people that are willing to listen to both sides and willing to care about both sides. And if there's one thing I say I have taken out of today's interview is that Bryan Hall cares. You care. You can tell. You can tell the way you talk, the way you speak about issues. You're passionate about it. You have a pulse on what they're thinking, and you're actively working through those. But you, like any good leader, admit what your hands are tied on and admit, what you can and can't control. And so I think you've given very fair, very clear, very transparent answers today. And I want to appreciate you allowing me to have the privilege of putting you in the hot seat, so to speak. I think, though, that it is very important for county officials like yourself to be transparent, though, and to take the time and to come on a local podcast to talk about some issues that are aggravating your citizens. I say kudos to you. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Much.
And for you guys, we will see you next time on another episode of McDonald County 411. Bye, guys.
Thank you.